Well, hello. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Today is the winter solstice for those of us on the Northern Hemisphere. So glad to have you guys here. And it is Ascension with A Course in Miracles. So exciting. So I know there's a few more who are going to join us. And as always, this is an opportunity for two or more to gather and experience the love that is possible when we come just willing to open our ears, open our eyes, receive some of the words, the messages, the love that is poured through us in this transmission of A Course in Miracles. And I am really, really excited because today we're going to just keep going on our very same lesson that we have been on for several weeks, because it's not possible to move through these lessons quickly. Some of you who have been in classes with me, sometimes we get, it takes us a whole night to get through a sentence, sometimes an entire evening to get through a paragraph. So we have been at it for a couple of weeks now to get through 8 paragraphs. And we are looking at lesson 186. Lesson 186, the title of it is Salvation of the World Depends on Me. And as we have been looking at this from over the last couple of weeks, what this means changes everything that we're experiencing while we are on this journey of appearing to be separate from God. What that means is that we need to understand the word salvation. Now, Course in Miracles was channeled for us by Jesus over 50 years ago. And it was given to us specifically in a Christian language, and specifically speaking of God as the Father. So the male figure, the Christian languaging, and yet it is a if you want to call it a teaching that focuses on psychology. So we are melding psychology, mysticism, and it comes through the filter of Christianity, specifically a language that spoke of, salvation back in the day. Salvation was to be known as, we were expecting God the Father to come down and save us and not send us to hell, not banish us to a place where we would be eternally condemned to fire and damnation and whatever that is. The salvation that the Course wants us to understand and the real meaning of God. First of all, let's break those two things down. God is love. It is neither male nor female, however, it contains all of it. So it is truly the embodiment of wholeness. So when you think about God, you can easily just swap that word with love. It's the same thing. However, it is very difficult for the human mind to understand that kind of love, because that is a love that is beyond what we have been conditioned to understand about love. It is unconditional. There's no condition to the love of God, Father, Mother, whatever you want to call it. There are no conditions. The human love that we know, we were conditioned, we were indoctrinated, we were trained into an idea of love based on the conditions that our parents placed on us to feel loved. So for example, did you hear, or did you as a parent tell your children, if you would pick up your room, mommy would be happy. If you would finish your homework and pass that test, daddy will be proud of you. So if you grew up believing that your parents would be happy with you, would be pleased with you, proud of you, then you grew up with conditional love. So therefore, everything that we did was then to be able to receive what we thought was our parents' love, which translates to approval. So when we say salvation, we're expecting God to come in and save us. So what we projected, the human father figure on God, And we're expecting the condition. Well, if I am good, if I behave, if I do everything you want me to do, you're going to save me, right? I don't have to go to hell. So that's not what this is about. Salvation is nothing more than an understanding that I've got to get myself straight with truth. I need to save myself from all of the conditioning in my head. I need to spare myself from what I have been operating under, which is the ego, because the ego is what contains, if you want to call it, the thought system that is conditioned. When we are operating from our truth, our God essence, it's not conditioned. It is the same for everybody. When we operate from the ego, it's conditioned. That's why it changes for everybody. You are the product of the conditions in your environment. Those who grow up Catholic are conditioned with a specific set of beliefs. Therefore, they cannot be unconditional with other people because they're conditioned with one way of thinking, and that becomes the truth that they have. So we've got to save ourselves from the conditioning. We need to move out of what we were taught is truth and come to the place where we begin to feel our way back to the truth of God. So then salvation of the world depends on me. Well, if I've got to save myself and that depends on me, why does the world depend on me? Well, it's one of the beauties of A Course in Miracles, because we've got to look at the world from two perspectives. The world that we see with our physical eyes that is out there, the world of America, versus another country. Like we recently had the World Cup. We had Argentina versus France. And we've been conditioned that there's this continent, there's another one. And then, of course, that creates rivalries, that creates competition, that creates the opportunities for conquering. If I don't like what you're doing, I'm going to come and take over. So we've been conditioned to see a world that is based on physicality, and physicality only, overlaid with human conditioning, overlaid with, well, my country's better than your country because we won this game, versus, you played a good match, you won, great, no big deal. But we are indoctrinated into this idea of separation, of better and lesser than, winners and losers. And when we look at the world that way, then we justify things like, well, we have to have war. How else are we going to be safe if we don't kill the people that are hurting us, that are scaring us, that are threatening us? So the world that we see is a world based on what we see physically, overlaid with information that always, always, always has to do with separation. There's going to be a right and a wrong, a good and a bad, a higher and a lower, the 1%, the 99%, the haves, the have-nots. So that is what the world that the ego has made is about. And what we're doing is the salvation of the world depends on me, means I need to begin to look at the world through the eyes of love, the eyes of God. Because when I begin to see the world from that perspective, which is unconditional love, I am removing the layers of misperception. I'm removing, you can call it the veil. I'm removing the conditions that I have placed on the world for me to be okay. And that is what is so crucial for us to understand, that salvation of the world depends on me means I need to get to the truth of the matter here. I need to understand the truth that sets me free, live from that truth, and then I will see a world transformed before me, because I will see the world as God created it, not as the ego made it. So I'm going to give a couple of highlights from past paragraphs that we have been looking at, and then go into the actual teachings inside of paragraph, starting with paragraph 9. So in paragraph 1, we heard, here is a statement that will one day take all arrogance away from every mind. Here is the thought of true humility, which holds no function as your own, but that which has been given to you. So arrogance and humility are so important because we need to understand what they mean. Humility is that false humility. Well, I can't possibly know what God knows. Well, God's telling you right here what God knows. And God is wanting us to understand that we are the ones who have made this world what it is. So if we want to change it, our salvation, our sparing ourselves from the suffering depends on us. True humility is to begin to undo the idea that God is outside of us, separate from us, and go where God is. And Jesus was a teacher who told us, as many others have taught us, the kingdom of heaven is within. God is within. The power that we each operate from, the breathing that happens, the functions that keep this body alive are happening because it's God experiencing life as us. So we've got to get really clear that we've got to understand who God is. We got to understand what God is. We need to move away from believing anything that teaches that God is outside of us. And as we move away from those false perceptions, we also have to move away from the insanity of arrogance. And arrogance is all about, well, I know better. I am right. Yes, I'm God, but you're not. Or no, God is out there. So false humility, I can't be that powerful. And arrogance, oh no, only God out there is powerful and I'm right about that. So we've got to let go of arrogance and ignorance. We need to understand the truth, and then we need to own it. We need to accept it and live it and embody it, because that's how we save ourselves. That's how the world becomes transformed. It depends on us to become the change we want to see in the world. Then as we continue to read through in this lesson 186, it tells us that this is what unites the will of heaven of earth in heaven's plan to save the world, restoring us to heaven's peace. We need to understand the truth of who we are and then live by that truth. And of course, it keeps going to stating that God knows our truth. And here he uses the word Father. The Father remembers us, still remembers us. God doesn't forget about what God has created. No different than we can forget about the children that we've given birth to. It's just not possible. So God remembers that we are all powerful beings creating our own reality based on the beliefs that we believe. So if you believe beliefs that were indoctrinated, conditioned, that are false, then, and you're right about those beliefs being the truth and the only truth, and, so help me God, then we're operating in arrogance. And if we begin to hear the truth that, what, I could be that amazing, and we don't accept it with humbleness, we are practicing false humility. So there are so many layers to all of these beautiful teachings. So it goes on to say, today we will not shrink from our assignment on the grounds that modesty is outraged. Don't be outraged by the truth. Allow yourselves to not shrink from the fact that you are a powerful being, powerful beyond measure. It is pride that would deny the call for God himself. So when you begin to listen to truth, you begin to have experiences that are transcendent. You begin to realize that there's just something magical, amazing happening here, and you don't own that it is coming from inside of you, and you have access to that. You can't save yourself because you're not allowing your truth to become your reality, because you're in false pride, a pride that keeps you believing what you've been indoctrinated with and not accepting what is true that comes from within. And an easy way to tell what is ego, what is God, well, God comes from within as a knowing you don't have to defend. That's why the Course teaches us in our defenselessness, our safety lies. Jesus didn't defend himself. Gandhi didn't defend himself. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't go around defending his position, telling people, that they were all wrong. He just stood for the truth and just marched, standing on the truth, not defending it. Because you can't defend the truth to people who believe in lies. I mean, that just creates an argument, that just creates this going back and forth that is not going to be helpful. So the opportunity here is for us to really understand the truth and then be it, embody it, live from that space. So I'm going to take a quick second to welcome everybody that's joining us. Thank you so much for being here. So there is, paragraph 5 says that there is one way and only one to be released from the imprisonment of your plan. And that is to allow yourself to prove what is true, true. And the only way you can experience what is true as truth is if you give yourself the opportunity to experience what would saving the world be all about? And for those of you who just joined us recently, we're on lesson 186. And I've got a little doggy that wants to leave the room, so I'm going to let her out. Normally, she just hangs out here quietly, but today something must be getting her attention. All right, so then we go into paragraph number 7 that says, the voice of God wants to relay to us that we have the ability to change our mind, that we have been created in the image of the Creator to create and expand our world. When we operate in the information that we have been indoctrinated with, hand-me-down beliefs from parents, from the church, from governments, from monarchies, from medical systems, when we are given the information about what is so, that was made up by somebody outside of us, we're operating with the ego. When we're operating with a knowingness that is within, we're operating with the thought system of God. Now, a lot of things come to us from the outside by people who are sharing truth, and you can feel it within you. You can feel the difference between the truth that is being told to you versus the lies, the indoctrination, the things that come with punishment. And rewards. However, we learned so much of that when we were little that our mind doesn't remember that we had to feel if what we were being taught resonated with our heart or not. Because when we were being taught things that were not true as children, we experienced feelings of that doesn't make sense. I remember going to Catholic church and hearing things about God, punishing God. And I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I would go, that doesn't feel right. Well, I heard it over and over and over and over and over again. And it wasn't until I was having healing experiences where I literally went back to childhood and realized, oh my gosh, I wasn't listening to my own inner knowing because I was conditioned to mother knows best, father knows best, grandparents knows best, authority outside of me knows best. So I gave away what really resonated internally with me and began to believe what I was told from the outside to avoid being punished. So as we're moving into, many of us, into our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we're beginning to receive truth directly from sources like A Course in Miracles, it usually doesn't match with what we believe is true. This is why we have to let go of this arrogance that we have of I'm right and I know it all, because we cannot possibly know it all. We know 1/8 millionth of what is known on this planet, and then there's more beyond what any human here knows. So we can't possibly know it all. Well, that requires humility. That requires moving into the space of I don't know what anything is for. One of the lessons in the course wants us to get to the place where we are no longer right about anything. Because when we can stop being right about anything, we begin to access the source that really knows the truth about everything. And it doesn't need to be right. God doesn't need to be right. God has given each and every one of us access to its mighty power, and we get to use it however we want to because of free will. Are we using that power with awareness of the truth, or are we using it inside of the conditioning, which means we're misusing it? We're not using it to expand the kingdom. We're using it to contract the kingdom. Because when we misuse it, it's all about me. It's all about protecting me. It doesn't matter what happens to you. I'm going to manipulate. I'm going to stomp and scream and shout. And if I get into a position of power, I'm going to lock you up, maybe even sentence you to death, whatever. I'm going to punish you if I have my way. When we operate from the ego, if I'm not getting my way, then I'm going to punish. So our mind has been filled with so much misinformation that it takes a while to sort through it. That's why salvation of the world depends on me, because I've got to clean up my consciousness. Once I clean up my consciousness, I have spared myself and spared others from my judgments, my misinformation. Then what happens is the world begins to change because we operate more gently, more loving, more joyful, more peaceful. And the more we are that being, the more we embody being the truth of who we are, the more we walk around the world, but not of it, like Jesus did, like Martin Luther King Jr. did. You come and you do what you're here to do. You know it within. And every single being that has walked upon this planet that has reached the level of awareness of truth and embodies it have one message and one message only. We're all equal. We're all one. Love your neighbors as yourself. And, don't judge me by the skin of the color of my skin. Everything becomes equalized because there's an awareness of our oneness. So the world begins to change on the outside because I'm beginning to see it differently. As I see the world differently from my experience of oneness, I will treat my neighbors. I will love them as I love myself. I will treat them as I want to be treated. And now this level of kindness, this level of gentleness, this level of collaboration, cooperation, co-creation is possible. And what is happening is that right now, specifically at this time of the great shift, we have crossed a line. This has already happened. And people have to make a decision. Are you going to acknowledge the truth of who you are, the power that you have? Then you cross the line into being in the world, but not of it, and embodying love. If you need to be right, you're going to be on this side of the line. So there is a bifurcation happening, and it has to happen. I'm not going to get into this because this is not really what I teach, but we are going through a 26,000 year cycle that is completing. You can call it the age of Aquarius. It takes 26,000 years for our galaxy to go through the revolutions that allows us to move through all of the stages that we have to go through to come back to a new revolution. So we have to understand that we're part of something grander. This is why we cannot be arrogant thinking we know everything. Just because you read the horoscope doesn't mean you really fully understand what's happening with the stars, the astrology of it, the astronomy of it. So we've got to be humble and open ourselves up to what is really happening. Well, at the completion of this cycle, what is going to happen? And you got to think of everything as a spiral. You are going to spiral down towards density, lower density, meaning you want to have another round inside of fear, inside of separation, where the ego rules the world, or you're going to spiral out and up out of the insanity of the ego, which means you want to operate with love, with cooperation, with trusting one another. Well, you have to be aware and understand that we need to practice some grace because we've all been operating inside of ego. So when people begin to operate outside of ego, it doesn't look normal. It looks kind of weird. What, that person loves everybody? I can't believe that person, is what? They're touching the leopard. They're doing things like that. They believe in healing. They don't need to go buy stuff from the store. They believe in healing themselves. They must be crazy. So the minds have to be adjusted to those who still are righteous about the old ways and those who are willing to not know anything and are trying new ways, maybe trying some kind of plant medicine, maybe trying some kind of alternative healing, maybe trying a total different diet, maybe moving somewhere that they never thought they would have moved to, maybe operating in a total and complete new career. They got inspired and they stepped into that and tried it. Because the more that we move into listening to God within, the freer we are from doing things the way we used to do them. Because insanity is doing the same old thing, expecting a different result. And the conditioning that we had is very repetitive, and it declares the kind of an outcome that it expects. You work 40 hours a week, you get a paycheck. You work 40 years, you get to retire. You do this, then you're happy. You get married, then you're safe. You trust your government and you do what they tell you, then you're going to be protected. So we've been taught this, then that. So it's very repetitive and very, very much expecting outcomes. Well, insanity is expecting a different result from doing the same things that had given us the same outcome, which is a world in chaos, a world of separation, a world of hierarchy, rights and wrongs, rewards and punishments. To move to a world where you are free and you save yourself, you spare yourself from the conditioning, you don't know what's coming. And you've got to be okay living in the now because that's how we cultivate trust. You got to try something new. You got to go to that new restaurant. You got to go to that new country. You got to date in a new way. You've got to be open to a new teaching. If you're used to Christianity, you may want to open up to Buddhism, and you begin to hear things that are different. And instead of shutting it down because it doesn't match, you begin to open up to, well, what if I applied that? What could happen if this was so? So we have to give ourselves permission to realize that we have the ability to change our mind if we want to. We have free will. But if we don't use free will to change our mind, we will not be free, because we will be operating inside of the righteousness of the old way. Today, we are in this middle of this bifurcation. And from what I understand, this 26,000 year cycle is coming to a completion. We are in the middle of a energetic shift right now. Today is the winter solstice in the US, summer solstice somewhere else. And it's a perfect metaphor for what this is all about. Today, in one part of the world, is the start of the light returning. So it's the shortest day of darkness, or longest day of darkness. We're going to go back to more light. And in the other part of the world is the reverse, is the longest day of light, and they're moving towards darkness. So we have a choice. So as within, so without. It's the same thing, because everything is a mirror. Are we going to choose this side of the fence and go for more darkness, or are we going to move to this side of the fence and choose more light? So that's the opportunity before us. At the completion of this cycle, we enter into the age of Aquarius, and it is about operating inner guided, and we cannot know what's going to come, because it's not predictable as the ego was predictable. However, it is predictable in that it will be fun and it will be easier, because you'll be guided from that beingness within you that knows how to create, it knows how to collaborate, it knows what brings joy, what brings fun, what brings ease, what brings peace, because it is the source of it. Ego is a block to that awareness. Aligning with God is the opening of that as our reality, so that we can have the lived experience of it. It's like when I come to these transmissions, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, but I totally trust that whatever it is, it's what I need to hear. Whatever it is what needs to be shared. It's what wants to be planted in the consciousness of humanity as a seed of truth. And those who want to hear it, hear it. Those who want to believe it, believe. Those who don't have to, because it is free will. So let's go here in lesson 186, salvation of the world depends on me. And let's pick up on paragraph number 9. Is this the Son of God? Could he create such instability and call it son? He who is changeless shares his attributes with his creation. So here, God is basically just saying, are you really the Son of God that can operate denying God? Or are you the Son of God who is going to begin to accept that you are changeless as one of your attributes, that there is something in you that just because you were conditioned did not change? The external conditions changed. You know, what your parents' expectations were different than the church's expectations. So something's changed, but that which is changeless, which is constant, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, that is what God created. That is the Son. Of course, Miracles calls it Son, but it is son, daughter, child of God. So we need to understand the truth of who we are and accept ourselves as God created us. Sentence 4 says, all the images his Son appears to make have no effect on what he is. Our mind creates images. We are given an image of what we're going to look like if we're successful. We create images of what it looks like if you are married and life looks perfect because you live in a house with a white picket fence. We have images in our mind that we're attempting to make our reality based on what we have been conditioned is right or wrong. So this is why we judge. Oh, you live on this side of the tracks versus that side of the tracks. Well, what makes that side of the tracks wrong? An image in our mind planted there by those who wanted us to believe this side of the track was right. But if you take away the conditions, then all there is there's this side and there's that side, but it's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. So we have to accept that all of the images that we have created have no effect on what we are. No image, just that we believe that it's on the south side of the tracks is bad. If we live on the south side of the tracks, if we grow up there, doesn't make us less holy. If we grow up on the north side of the tracks, it doesn't make us more holy. So we have to understand that what is changeless cannot be changed by the beliefs and conditions that we have experienced in our human incarnation. Here it tells us what happens. They blow across his mind like wind-swept leaves that form a patterning, an instant break apart to group again and scamper off, or like mirages seen above a desert rising from the dust. The images that our ego has made, they will fly away, they will flutter away like leaves, they'll get blown away if you stop believing them. But if you hold on to, oh my God, the leaves fell off the tree and they blew this way, that means, something horrible is going to happen. Oh, what a mess. I'm going to have to pick this up. It's going to be impossible. You're creating an image in your mind of difficulty, of making a decision of how everything's going to be. You're not in the now moment, just letting the leaves flow by. It's so fascinated in my yard. Of course, all the leaves have fallen already from the trees. And I thought, well, it's going to be a lot of leaves. We're going to have to mow them, pick them up and mulch them and clean up the yard. But the wind took care of it. The wind has blown them away. But I had an image of what I needed to do. If I wasn't really loose with my images, if I didn't hold them loosely and let them come, let them go whenever they want to come and go, I would have been stuck inside of this notion of what I had to get done. But life did it for me. So instead of enjoying what life has done, the conditioning says that way is wrong. My way it's right. Arrogance, my way is right. Ignorance, there's another way. There was another way by a benevolent creative source that wanted to move those leaves and take them and mulch whatever land it wanted to take and mulch, because that's where it was needed. And we cannot change that. Life is going to do what it's going to do. God, source, spirit, the earth is going to do what it's going to do. We can't control that. But salvation of the world that I'm projecting depends on me, because I need to stop projecting that from a mind that has been conditioned into limitation and allow my mind to be expanded into unlimited ways of doing things, so that I can humble myself and acknowledge that I don't know it all. And when I don't know it all, I then become open-minded. I can become more tolerant of differences instead of my right and your wrong. Now it's like, my ideas, your ideas, share with me. Oh, I like that one. You know what? That one doesn't resonate. It doesn't feel right in here. So instead of making you wrong for your idea being different than mine, there's an acknowledgement. Oh, that's different, but it doesn't resonate. Can you imagine how the world will be a better place, a safer place, a more peaceful place, when one country doesn't have to conquer another one and make them do things their way? But instead, we respect different cultures and we encourage everybody to do whatever it is that they want to do. Now, I know the mind wants to say, but in this country, their culture hurts people. Their culture puts women down. I get it. If you're talking about the country, Iran right now, they're having massive, massive revolts because the Iranian women, they don't want to be oppressed anymore. And men are standing beside them, or at least that was the case a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure where that is now, but there is an awareness that nobody should be oppressed. Why? Because we are the creators of our own reality. So when we're respecting culture, it is not that we're going to accept, oh, it's okay for this culture to oppress women or children or whatever it might be, but rather we respect them, don't make them wrong for what they're doing, but then we offer, how can we be of service? Can we share with you how we do things? Well, if I go and attack you and tell you you're wrong, how's that going to open your mind? It's not. It's going to make those people buckle down and be in their righteousness. But if we live our happy life over here where everybody is equal and we didn't meddle in trying to tell other people how to live their lives in other countries, we would be an example. I learned from examples. I did not learn at all anything ever from somebody telling me what the truth was. which is how I learned to stop trying to tell my children how the truth was, or trying to stop telling my students, this is the truth and nothing but the truth. If you don't believe it, you can't come back to my class. I put it out there. You take what resonates, leave what doesn't, because you can only pick up what resonates because that means that's what you're ready for. Remember, life is a spiral. If you're going into the tightness of your egoic story, you're not going to accept things that are on the outside. It's not possible. But if you're opening up, if you're blossoming out of the tightness of that tight little bud that we turn into when we're believing only one way of doing things, then the more we are moving out of the spiral, out further out, the more open we become. So we need to understand that the process, whether people are getting really tight in their story and righteous about their story, or open and to what is possible, the process works perfectly, naturally, because there is a call to return to the truth of who we are. We can choose to go away from the truth and get tight and tense and lose our way, or we can choose to return to the truth when we're ready and experience ease and peace and a movement out of the spiral. It is all orchestrated. It is all managed, and that's a good thing, because if I had to manage telling my body how to pump blood, how to use oxygen, when to digest, I'd be in trouble. And if I had to decide how the world operates, when is it that the mulching of the leaves happen, when is the rain going to fall, and how is that leaf that just got rained on, how is it going to mulch and feed the animals and freshen up the earth and make it so that we can plant things and grow food in the spring. If I had to be in charge of that, I'd be in trouble. So I decided a long time ago to be okay with the things that I don't know, but know that the world is operating just fine without me, that the universe is operating just fine without me, so that I could begin to enter into a relationship with the creator that was vaster than my idea of myself, so that I can begin to humble myself. See, before that, I was so arrogant and righteous. I knew it all. It's funny to say that, but yes, I operated in that realm of righteousness for a very long time. And I try to control the world to do things my way. I'm so glad that it was not possible. So no matter what we do, no matter what patterns we believe in, what mirages we believe in, everything will always return back to the truth. And there's nothing that we can do about that, because it is changeless. It's the same for everybody. Paragraph 10, these unsubstantial images will go. The ideas of righteousness, they will go, and leave your mind unclouded and serene when you accept the function given you. Our function is just to enjoy being the bringers of love and light. If you just be loving, if you just be light, meaning accept that you have access to infinite intelligence, go within and find that infinite intelligence. Don't put a bushel over your light and cover it up with conditioned beliefs. Allow yourself to be totally and completely open to that. There's got to be more. We are like a ray of the sun. Let the sun, let the essence of the Father, Mother, God, central sun, whatever you want to call it, illuminate our mind by shining through us, by accepting the function that was given to us. Course in Miracles says our function is to be happy. We are the light of the world, so just be happy and shine your light. The images that you make give rise to but conflicting goals, impermanent and vague, uncertain and ambiguous. This is sentence number 2 in paragraph 10. All right, so yes, conflicting goals, impermanent, vague, uncertain, and ambiguous. So think about how we all get conditioned and trained to become successful. And we got to find a partner. And then we get to have a family, and we have a job, we make a lot of money, and then we get to be safe. All right, conflicting goals. Have a partner and create a family. Well, it's a little conflicting when you want to have a family, but then you may want to stay home with your child, but then you got to go out and work and make a lot of money. So there's a lot of conflict there. Impermanent. you raise your children and off they go. And what's your role? Well, I know I felt that. Oh my God, I'm not a mom anymore. Nobody needs me to be momming them anymore. Of course, I still am a mom, but I don't use that as a way I relate with my children. I relate with my children as my holy brothers and sisters. That totally changed our relationship when we began to see each other as equal and not as mother knows better. Uncertain and ambiguous. I've gone through a couple of marriages. I thought I found the right one, and then I thought I found the next right one, and oh my gosh, well, why is it not turning out the way that Disney said it was going to turn out, happily ever after? I keep chasing this happiness. Well, very ambiguous because, well, it's a white knight in shining armor, or on a white horse, or whatever that is. Oh, how many white horses do you see roaming around with the knight in shining armor? But my head was looking for the knight in shining armor, but there are no knights in shining armor out there. So this information is very conflicted that the world teaches us deliberately, keeping us confused because they are confused. And they are confused, the ones who teach us those things as true. They are confused because inside they know this is not quite that way, but they haven't had the courage to stand for the truth that is true always, and encourage the children to follow your own path, follow your own dream. And yes, I know parents, when I talk like this, say, but you can't let kids make all their decisions. No, we don't let them make all of their decisions when it pertains to safety, we don't let them go walk on the road when the traffic is coming. We don't let them run with scissors that are sharp, and I didn't even let them run with scissors that were not sharp. So there are things that parents that we do and set parameters to help them get to adulthood safely, teaching them the ways of the world, how to cook their food, how to do things. Yes, there's a lot of instruction that comes with parenting. However, what we are to stop doing is thinking that we know what's best for them, what their life should look like, what they should study, where they should go to school, the kind of money that they should make when they grow up. We should stop telling them the way the religion that they should believe in, the political party that they should be affiliated with. How about dialogue? How about conversations? Well, what do you believe? How about becoming humble as a parent and allowing the children to teach us, because they are closer to the truth, because they haven't been indoctrinated as long as we have. So the world has taught us things that keep us totally, completely in anxiety and uncertain. Little children know. They know what they want. They know they want to play with this toy. They know they want to do that. They know they want to not go to bed. There's an inner knowing. If we teach them how to connect with that and then use that and apply it as discernment for lots of other more important things in life later on, then we're teaching them to stay connected to the truth of who they are. Then they have been spared the nonsense that we have had to wake up from. They'll be spared from that, and they can remain awake in the dream of separation, that bodies are real, so that we can experience this dream with joy, how God intended for us to experience it. So that's what this is telling us. Those images are going to come and go. The sooner we don't operate by what our ego tells us, the sooner we don't indoctrinate the next generation and the one after that. With my grandchild, I am not dumping any of the things on my grandchild that I taught my kids, because I'm aware now. And my daughter already knows more clearly what she prefers from her childhood. So she too is doing her very best to make sure that my grandson, her child, grows up with a connection to its own inner voice. Guess what? That child is going to have children. And now we are creating a new earth of people who are inner guided. And it's not just my grandchild. Children are being born right now with a knowingness that they are not putting up with a lot of their parents' indoctrinations, which is so exciting. Paragraph 10 still, sentence 3. Who could be constant in his efforts or direct his energies and concentrate a drive towards goals like this? We spend so much of our energy chasing what we've been told we're supposed to be doing, exhausting ourselves, making our bodies sick, having so much anxiety in our mind that we're creating illnesses, that we're creating so many things that keep us in a space of dis-ease, because we're not at ease with the truth of who we are. So the function which the world esteems are so uncertain that they change 10 times an hour at their most secure. What hope or of gain can rest on goals like this? Well, the world has been changing the goalpost. They've been moving it. I mean, we experienced that with COVID not too long ago. I forget what it was, so please don't hold me to the exact numbers, but it was something like a couple of weeks to flatten the curve, and then it was a couple of months to flatten the curve, and it's a couple of years to get over this. And is it going to be a decade? So we need to be humble enough to know that we don't know what we don't know. And instead of going out there and being the one who knows everything and put it out because I'm the expert, because I'm the World Health Organization, and because I am the Dr. Fauci and the head of this, and this is a way that it is, how about a little humbleness? How about let's get together where two or more are gathered, there is love. How about we do a ceremony where we connect and listen for the truth inside of us? It's really happening here. What's this virus here to teach us? What is this all about? How can we keep humanity safe? How can we align with the truth that is inside of us? Does somebody want to take this thing, this shot? Go inside. Does it feel like it's the right one for me? Take it. Does it feel like it's not the right thing for me? Don't take it. Our bodies are not the same because our conditioning, our consciousness is very different. And the beliefs, depending on the level of fear that we're at, are going to manifest in our body like to that fear. A mind that is clear, a mind that is aligned with God, a mind that is free to believe what it wants to believe inside of the realm of love and respect and oneness, is not going to manifest those kinds of things. So if somebody says, I don't want to take this pill, or I don't want to take that thing, or I don't want to work this job, their experience in their joy is going to be fun and easy. But one who is forced to do things against their will, in their anxiety, in their anger, in their frustration, they are going to manifest like to that belief system, because everything is energy. The bifurcation is simply high frequency, low frequency. It's not good, it's not bad. It's just, what experience do we want to have on a planet of free will? Do I want to live in the spiral, coming out and being free to be myself and let everybody else be free? No conditions, no double standards? Or do I want to operate in righteousness? I know what's right for you. You don't know what's right for me. Double standards. I get to make the rules. You don't. You abide them. Well, it's going to have its own effects. So here we're told everybody is still operating in the changeless essence of who God created us as, while at the same time we choose between listening to the voice of fear that instills things like uncertainty and conflicting goals and makes life brings anxiety, or can we experience this world that appears to change with more peace in our heart, more collaboration? Paragraph 11 says, in lovely contrast, certain as the sun's return each morning to dispel the night, your truly given function stands out clear and wholly unambiguous. There is no doubt of its validity. It comes from one who knows no error, and his voice is certain of its image. They will not change, nor be in conflict. All of them point to one goal, and one you can attain. Your plan may be impossible, but God's can never fail because he is its source. When I read things like that, it makes it super easy for me. If God is the source of everything, if God created everything, God created the world, God created you and me, God created the universe, and has all these planets spinning in perfect distance from one another, so they're not crashing and bumping into each other like bumper cars at the amusement park. If God created that perfection, then do I know more than God? I don't think so. I had to humble myself. I had to really humble myself and get myself off of the pedestal that I had placed myself on in the I know everything realm, and humble myself. God, what would you have me know? What is the truth here, God? And once I began to humble myself and receive that truth, I keep pointing here like it's out there somewhere. I went inside. I got silent. I got still. I went inside, and in stillness, God is speaking to me. I feel it through the intuitive knowingness. I feel it through the inspiration, just as little children. My little grandson, nobody taught him to come down and start coloring. His mom doesn't say, well, when you walk down the stairs, you're going to only be happy if you start your day by coloring. And you'll only be happy if you put that down in 3 minutes and then go and start playing with the trains or the cars or whatever. His mom doesn't map out his schedule like our schedules get mapped out as we're trained into being adults. He comes down the stairs and he goes here, he goes there. Something is guiding him. What is guiding him? But yet he's so happy moving from this thing to the next thing to the next thing, inspired, and he picks up the crayon and he colors and then he puts it down. What is moving him if he wasn't told that that's what he was supposed to do? If it wasn't on the calendar, what has him do it at that time? Well, there's an innate energy. There's an innate movement that is changeless because it's the same for all of us. It's creative. It's joy seeking always. It's sharing, extending love, extending connection. He wants to play with this one. He wants to play with that one. It seeks to collaborate. Where two or more are gathered, there is love. It's just beautiful. I'm watching him be the expression of the Christ in action, just absolutely treating everybody how he wants to be treated, loving and kind and gentle. And does he have his moments? Yes, he does. And the family acknowledges, well, you know what? He's having an outburst. It's okay. We're not going to make it personal. We're not going to punish him because he's having a tantrum. Let's function with this in a way that allows everybody to be the best that they can be. How can we love somebody while they're going through their tantrum? As a mom, when I was unconscious, I wanted my kids to stop having their tantrum so I wouldn't start having one. But with my daughter, I watch her, lets her child have his tantrum. She sits next to him, lets them know that she is there, or she'll continue doing what she's doing. She doesn't internalize it. It's not about her. It's not an expression of who she is as a mother. And it doesn't take long for this little one to express what it needs to express and move on. And then they get into their rhythm. It's so beautiful to watch. Let me go to paragraph 12. Do as God's voice directs. And if it asks a thing of you, which seems impossible, remember who it is that asks and who would make denial. If God created the universe, everything, and you trust it, keyword trust. If you trust God, why wouldn't you do what you're inspired to do? Because the ego got trained into believing that that's wrong. I shouldn't do that. I should have everything mapped out. Well, we're waking up and out of the old conditioning that says the way things should be so that we can move into the new world, the new earth, and move flowing with inspiration. So it's a big reversal of conditions of consciousness. Then consider this, which is more likely to be right, God's way or yours? The voice that speaks for the creator of all things, who knows all things exactly as they are, or a distorted image of yourself, confused, bewildered, inconsistent, and unsure of everything. The choice is simple, but we got to get off the fence. Either God knows everything and we trust it, or God knows everything and we try to do it ourselves. Or God doesn't know anything because, I don't believe in God and I know everything. Well, this way or that way, you cannot have a foot in both worlds. You're going to have to pick. The bifurcation is upon us. Are you going to trust God fully and surrender to that flow? Or are you going to still try to control things? If you try to control things, you're controlling things with the same mind that created the problems that you don't like. Are you going to keep driving yourself insane, wanting a different result, but you keep doing the same thing? Well, if you are paying attention to the results of your life experiences and notice where they start, they have their foundation in your belief system, then you're going to want to change your belief system. And you're going to want to not listen to the beliefs of the ego. You're going to want to listen to the beliefs of God. Everybody in every single position in the world, the teachers, the preachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the accountants, the politicians, the pharmacist, the checkout person at Walmart, every one of them is choosing between God and ego. Everybody is choosing. When you feel that somebody is totally, completely listening, hearing what you have to say, collaborating, co-creating, creating dialogue that allows for all voices to have their say. You're talking to somebody who's listening to the voice of God. When you have somebody telling you this is the way it's going to be done, if you don't do it my way, you're going to be in trouble. You're listening to one who's speaking through the voice of the ego, because the ego is the only one that believes it knows what's best for everybody else. The voice for God knows what is best for everybody else only when each person comes to that knowing on their own. Therefore, it doesn't control. It allows for all lessons to come at the time, the pace that they need to come at, because all lessons are coming to us like grades in school. There is an order to these lessons. My grandson cannot learn today what it's like to run heavy equipment and be a bike trail builder like his father. He's not even 2 years old. Can't jump him to that lesson. Not only that, he may not want to do that. So we meet him where he's at. When you meet people where they're at and you ask him, where do you want to go from here? Now you're listening with the ears of God, and you're hearing, well, what can you offer here if you've been there, done that? But the ego says, no, I'm expecting you to be over there, because this is how we start. The area that I raised my family in, a very well-to-do area called East Cobb in the Atlanta, Georgia area. And my goodness, those kids were not even in kindergarten, and their path to going to college was already mapped out. Are they going to go to Kennesaw State? Are they going to be going to, I forget all the colleges here, Georgia State, or are they going to go to Georgia Tech? Well, if you're going to go this path, then we got to set you up for the Hope Scholarship. Kindergarten already had 12 years ahead of them, mapped out what they needed to do so that they could get to this magical place where they could get this job, career, blah, 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 degree, and then be somebody. Oh my God, they were somebody in kindergarten, but we never nurtured that somebody that they were, because we were conditioning them to become who we needed them to become. A cog in the wheel of humanity. Salvation of the world depends on you. You save yourself, spare yourself this insanity, then you show up differently for your children. They show up differently for their children, and so on and so on and so on. We co-create a new earth of people who are free. Right now, we have a world of people who are in fear. And people who are in fear are scared. They're controlling, or they need to be controlled. People who are free, let everybody be. Let everybody be. Never in a selfish way, always for the greater good of all. Then it goes on to say, let not its voice direct you, talking about the ego. Hear instead a certain voice which tells you of a function given you by your creator, who remembers you and urges that you now remember him. God gave us a purpose to be happy. If you're not happy, you don't know God. And if you don't know God, how are you going to allow yourself to do the things, to experience the flow in life that allows you to have the experience of happiness? So we've got to get all of this, understand the mechanics here, so we can untrain our mind out of the beliefs of the ego, retrain our mind into listening to the voice for God. Paragraph 11. His gentle voice is calling from the known to the unknowing. God knows, I don't know. It's calling me. Inspiration is happening. It's based on what excites me, is what I know is the call from source. He would comfort you, although he knows no sorrow. God does not feel bad for any of us. God just says, all right, when you're ready, you'll come and do it the fun and easy way. But as long as you want to do it your way, learn your lessons the hard way, it's okay. It's okay. I am not going to punish my grandson. If he wants to stick his finger in the socket and that's how he wants to learn, even though we've told him not to do that, I'm not going to be upset with him. And I'm not going to go into sorrow and be walking around like, oh my God, if he's going to put his finger in a socket. If he needs to learn the lesson that way, he will. If he can just trust and not do that, then he will avoid that. Good for him. Either way, no sadness here. Either way, God does not experience sorrow that we have created the mess on the planet that we have, because God knows that what is unchangeable is accessible if we allow ourselves to experience realizing that the salvation of the world depends on us, but it starts here. He would make a restitution, though he is complete, a gift to you, although he knows that you have everything already. God already knows we're whole and complete. But if you need to have that special job that you really want to have, well, if you follow the guidance, if you follow the intuition, the doors will open and you'll have that wonderful job. If that's what's going to help you feel like, oh, you're contributing, you're participating. Because even though we're complete, we're here to give of what is inside of us. Basically, we're here to empty ourselves. The old conditioning that we have as egos is we're here to get, accumulate, and then, the one that dies with the most toys wins. The way of God is the one that empties themselves the most of their joy, their excitement, their creativity is the one. It's not a win or lose, but it's the one that's going to be the most fulfilled. He has thoughts which answer every need his son perceives, although he sees them not. For love must give, and what is given in his name takes on the form most useful in a world of form. When our prayers are answered, it is simply because God knows the next right thing, the next right step, because it sees everything and knows that each and every one of us is a piece of a puzzle. So it is lining us up to connect with one another in the right and perfect way. And when our time with others is complete, those pieces get pulled apart. We can do it the hard way and complain and get lawyers involved and blaming and shaming like many have done. Or we do it the easy way. You know what? Our time is complete. Thank you very much for the experience. Now I wish you well, because I wish me well. I do unto others as I would like done unto me. And then the pieces get moved and they get rearranged. And then for the next opportunity in this incarnation or another incarnation, then we come and we find each other and the pieces match. So simple. In the world of form, that which is formless is what knows. So we've got to learn to live with that paradox. That which is formless knows, and allow ourselves to be humble enough to receive that guidance, not be so arrogant that we know what it should be, and just flow with what is. Then we are the salvation that the world is seeking for, because we have freed ourselves from the insanity and we walk among this planet free like Jesus was, to just be and extend love. And if somebody doesn't like it, well, it's okay. We don't need to defend it. We just are embodying it. And we are at the point, it won't be much longer now, by the end of this decade, happy, peaceful people are going to be the new normal. And those happy, peaceful people is what everybody's going to want. Now we're all chasing success or righteousness or who's on top and who's got that position of power. Those days are almost over, because people in positions of power with all that money are not happy. Not all of them. So that's losing its appeal. The world of materialism is losing its appeal. Why? Because something within is calling us into inner peace. That's when you spare the world your righteousness. You spare the world your ignorance, because we have found the peace that passes all understanding, and it's right in here. And then God moves us and puts us where we need to be, so that we can be the example we want to see in the world. Last paragraph, 14. These are the forms which never can deceive, because they come from formlessness itself. Forgiveness is an earthly form of love, which, as it is in heaven, has no form. Yes, we're forgiving people, because in this world, it appears that that is loving. But in truth, what we are is love. So we don't need to forgive each other. When we are operating at that level of consciousness, what is known as the 5D world, when we're operating at that level of consciousness, we don't have to forgive anybody. Because why? You trust that everybody is where they're at, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it is all orchestrated by the creative source, so that we each, in our agreements with one another, are flowing and vibing with one another seamlessly, joyfully, easily. When you have that level of trust in the formless, that's because you're totally inner guided. Now, the outer world of form has no power over you. The sales, the markdowns at Black Friday or whatever they call these things, it doesn't matter. You don't need to buy another thing. You don't need to acquire another degree. You don't need another award to be happy. You don't need another house to show the status that you have. You are free. You are free because you're inner guided. Yet, what is needed here is given here as it is needed. Like the lilies of the valleys, when we trust, all of our needs will be met. It is amazing when I look back on my life and I see, my gosh, things always did work out. How was it that it magically happened that way? Well, because God is expressing as me and it knows what is best and it makes it happen whether I accept it or not, whether I flow with it or not. No matter how much I resisted, yeah, sometimes my resistance causes me to take the long way, the long way home, and makes me take all kinds of detours and makes things somewhat difficult. But eventually I end up where God wants me to be. So if I'm going to end up where God wants me to be, which is free, why not just allow that to be the way that I flow and enjoy the ride now so that I can be happily ever now, not happily ever after. So this completes with, in this form, you can fulfill your function even here. Although what love will mean to you when formlessness has been restored to you is greater still. Salvation of the world depends on you who can forgive. Such is your function here. When we can forgive ourselves for having forgotten the truth that all the answers are within. When we can forgive our moms and dads for teaching us what they knew, forgive them, they didn't know what they were doing because they learned it from their moms and dads. And generationally, they've been passing down hand-me-down beliefs, very confining, thousands of years teaching that God is outside, it's a father, and it gets angry and it's loving, confusing information, teaching us, Disney's been around for many decades, telling us that we need to find this knight in shining armor on a white horse. We've been handed down misinformation. And we have accepted so many things that are simply today not going to be okay with those who are waking up. Because as we wake up, we begin to realize, no, wait a second. Like, for example, our government is supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people. We are going to stand up for those things that bring about equality. When we understand that the patient knows best, we're not going to put up with somebody telling us that if we don't take this thing, we can't get a passport to travel, or we can't get permission to go here or there. When we no longer buy into external sources having power over us, we become inner guided. When we're inner guided, we know that love is the only way. And when love is the only way, we will only do that which is loving. So salvation of the world depends on those who forgive ourselves for what we didn't know we were doing while we were being indoctrinated. We forgive those who taught us that. We forgive everybody because we don't want to live in blame. We move ourselves to the frequency of going, okay, there is a better way. There is another way. And that way is a way of love. You gravitate to the people that operate at that frequency. The bifurcation is happening. You're watching the states becoming more this way versus that way. You're watching the communities and families. There are families who connect and have this conversation, and some members who have this conversation. It's happening because the bifurcation is the result of consciousness seeking the level of awareness of truth that it wants to have its incarnation experience from. And if you want it, I want to experience incarnation from love. I want fun and ease. That's what I am gravitating toward. If I want ease and peace in my mind, I cannot be judging because that brings me to the lower frequency. And then I'm going to be miserable talking to people about misery. I don't want that kind of company. So salvation of the world depends on me. Is giving me the power to realize that inside of me is a changeless, all-knowing voice that I can connect to, but I must choose that voice because on the planet of free will, I cannot be forced to listen to the voice for God. I can be forced to listen to the voice of mom and government. I can be forced into that because I've been conditioned into rewards and punishments. So I don't want to be punished, so I'll listen to that voice. But when it comes to God, God doesn't punish or reward us for listening to it. The following the voice that allows all beings to be free is its own reward. You don't have to convince somebody to want that. You just live it and be it, and it becomes its very own example. So that is the completion of this beautiful lesson 186. salvation of the world depends on me. So if anybody has a nugget or anything that they want to share, or a comment or a question, if you unmute yourself, we can go ahead and address that. And if not, we will just complete this transmission. Thank you so much for coming and listening. If you want the ones that we've already done, the doggy coming in, you can hear the footprints. If you want to listen to the other Ascension with A Course in Miracles, they're on my YouTube channel, lainaorlando.com. Look for the Ascension with A Course in Miracles playlist. We're here every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, just about every Wednesday. Rarely do we miss them, but from time to time we do. And the Zoom link is always the same. So if you enjoyed this, share this with others. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So unmute yourselves if you have anything you want to share. And if not, it's okay. It's not a requirement. This is a transmission, not a class. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And it is, as I said, the winter solstice today. So that's December 21st. So for those of you who celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Those of you in the middle right now of Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah. Those who will celebrate Kwanzaa or whatever you choose to celebrate, may this be a season for you to remember that you are the light of the world. And if you operate as that, you will live your life merry and bright. If you choose not to operate from that truth, then it's okay. You're the creator of your own reality. Thank you for using your power however you want to use it. God does not punish that at all. If anything, God is quite amused by the many ways that we use our God-given powers. Love you all. See you later.
Love you, Laina.
Hello, sweetie. Good to have you here.
Thank you. It was perfect timing. Perfect timing. Thank you.
I'm so glad. Take care. Bye-bye.